an order for the train to leave Skopje. On March 29th, at 6 a.m., the loading of 2,404 Jews onto boxcars commenced at the former tobacco sheds. Loading was completed at 12 noon, and at 12:30, the train left punctually, escorted by platoon number 1, which comprised 30 men and was commanded by Police Sergeant Buchner. The final destination, Treblinka, was reached on April 5th, 1943, at 7 a.m. On the same day, the train was unloaded between the hour of 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Incidents. 5 Jews died on the route. On the night of March 30th, an elderly woman of 70. On the night of March 31st, an elderly man aged 85. On April 3rd, an elderly woman aged 94 and a 6-month-old child. On April 4th, an elderly woman aged 99 died. Transportraster. Received 2,404, less 5. Total delivered at Treblinka, 2,399. Signed, Karl, Military Police Lieutenant and Company Commander.
The banality of Karl's work report underscores the enormity of the evil. No military tribunal ever prosecuted the Bulgarian or German soldiers for these crimes against humanity. As Eichmann said in Jerusalem, we were just doing our job. The German commander of each transport had a passenger list with the name, address, date, and place of birth and occupation of each person on these trains. These details tell us a lot about the precious human cargo in the boxcars.
Esther Cohen spends her 17th birthday on the train to Treblinka. Her brother Pinchas is a 23-year-old butcher. Hannah Zadicario is 45-year-old when she goes to her death. She had 4 girls, Sarah, Palomba, Dora, and Estrella. And she has 5 boys, Yosef, Salomon, Kalev, Liacho, and Moshe. Moshe is a 1-year-old baby. Isaac Al-Balak is 85-year-old. His great-granddaughter, Suncho, is a 1-year-old baby.
When couples get married, they promise to love and support one another until death parts them. None of these Jewish couples imagined they would be torn apart in the Nazi death camp.
My mother was a very nice, fine lady. Well, she knew almost all the things that I have the occasion to hear now in Ladino, mostly Joyce sing songs, and of course she knew also sad songs. She was wonderful. After she has received the news, she stopped singing. She stopped smiling. She stopped living.
The Bulgarian roundup of the Jews of Bitola includes 83 members of the Al-Bukhair family. The only record some of them leave behind is an image of what they looked like shortly before their murder in Treblinka. Each is made in the image and likeness of God.
After the war, Yakov Aroesti, a survivor from Bitola, spent the remaining 15 years of his life identifying any scrap of information he could find about the people who vanished from his city in 1943.
Nearly all of his family was murdered in Treblinka. His sister-in-law, Sarah, his son, Moise, his brothers, Pepo and Isaac, his nephew, Salomon, and his niece, Esther, and his cousins, Mayo and Vida.
Единствен евреин съм аз, в града Штип. Таква националност само аз. Други няма. Много ми е тежко. Много ми е тежко, приведейки никой няма. Фамилията. От моя татко. Това са много тежки моменти. Оти съм и сам, много тежко.
Yad Vashem preserves the memory of millions who perished in the Shoah. There are only a few pictures of members of my family from Bitola. I remember my cousin, whom I visited as a little boy in Bitola and never saw again. All of them were murdered in Treblinka.
Kento balkon din gunavus la mi sangre no te puedo perdonar, mala mi muerte con placer. La mi sangre no te puedo perdonar, mala mi muerte con placer.
In the first fratricide, Cain killed his own brother Abel. Then he denied he did it. The sages were less interested in Cain's past than in Abel's complete erasure from any future history. The murderer's own brother dies childless. It is as though Cain had killed Abel's entire universe.
$50,000 Bulgarian Jews were saved from torture and from extermination. Why don't your children know this?
1943. The surrender of the Wehrmacht to the Russian army in Stalingrad marks the beginning of the end for Germany. But Danes rescue over 7,000 Jews and ferry them to safety in Sweden. In the same year, the largest mass rescue in the history of the Shoah takes place in Bulgaria. On February 22, 1943, Belef and Danica agree on the roundup and transport of 20,000 Jews to Treblinka. Belef sends telegrams to his deputy commissars explaining when and how to execute the arrests of all the Jews in their towns. In Burgas, a postman delivers a telegram to Abraham Asa, president of the local Jewish community and father of Rabbi Asa.
Belef and Danica had signed the contract, which was our death sentence. Commissar Belef sent copies instructing all the commissars of Jewish affairs in the small towns and mid-sized towns that now they have to prepare the Jews under their jurisdiction for the eventual expulsion and resettlement to the east. My father was perhaps the first and only Jew to have seen that telegram, that death sentence. And of course my father read it, realizing immediately that this was not for him, but rather for the commissar, and immediately went to the postmaster and said to him, listen, why don't you teach your postman how to read Bulgarian? This is not for me, it was delivered by mistake. Well, the postmaster, who was our neighbor and friend, immediately read the telegram. He became almost paralyzed when he understood that this was our death sentence. He winked at my father and he said, Assad, did you read this? And my father winked back at him saying, of course not, this is not for me. He says, good. My father immediately made reservations to leave that evening for Sofia and immediately went to the Jewish Federation, which was the central Jewish authority in Sofia, in Bulgaria. And when he shared with them the contents of the telegram, the reaction was a disbelief, basically saying, come on, this is not Germany, this is not Poland, this is Bulgaria.
Beginning in early March, the Bulgarian army and police round up the Jews in the Bulgarian-occupied territories and load them onto Bulgarian trains. The trains carrying the Jews from Greece pass through Bulgaria to the Danube port of Lom, where the human cargo is loaded onto 4 boats to Vienna. As the trains pass through Bulgaria, the secret plan to deport the Jews becomes known. Bulgarians take action. Bishop Stephen of Sofia drives to the Rila monastery. On the way, he stops for a train and sees human beings packed into boxcars. And he concludes that only Jews would be transported in this way. The train is headed north, and he surmises that it is traveling to Poland. He sends the king a telegram protesting the deportation.
What I saw exceeded my notions of horror and my conception of inhumanity. In the boxcars there were young and old, sick and well, mothers with their nursing babies, pregnant women, packed like sardines and weak from standing. They cried out desperately for help, for pity, for water, for air, for a scrap of humanity.
The Belov-Donica plan includes trains for 20,000 Jews. 8,000 are to come from cities inside Bulgaria. The cabinet explicitly approves warrants for arrest in Kyustendil and Plovdiv. The roundup in Plovdiv begins in the early morning of March 10.
1,600 Jews were gathered in this courtyard. The entire block basically was surrounded by police, heavily guarded, so that no one could get out.
Y con 2 que lo asistían, 2 papás que lo asistían, y se dirigió ante los judíos que estaban arrestados en la escuela. Corre un policía y le dice, 1.600 personas estaban apresados. Sale un policía delante del obispo y le dice, señor obispo, es prohibido entrar aquí. Él con la mano suavemente le dice, muchachos, sos muy pequeñito a pararme a mí. Este policía se vuelve y va a un oficial de la policía. Aquel corre frente del obispo y le dice, señor obispo, tengo un orden que aquí no debe de entrar ninguna persona. El obispo le dice, este orden no vale para mí. Y entonces se va entre los hebreos. Aquellos van llorando. Aquellos están esperando lo más terrible que puede ser. Porque ya sabíamos lo que era en los campos de exterminación. Y entonces el obispo les dice, hijos míos, hijos míos, debes de saber que los Dios no va a permitir hacerse esta cosa terrible, cosa que Él no quiere que se haga. Debes de estar tranquilos. И се vuelve.
Секунда. Аз ще бъда с вас, ако трябва да се изселим.
Yo estaré con ustedes.
Justo.
Si parten los transportes para los campos de exterminación. Este hombre.
When Bishop Cyril leaves the Jewish community, he immediately sends the king a one-sentence telegram. In the name of